How a poor boy survived off eating rats to build a multi-million empire. With the country's capital under siege, all businesses in the capital were forced to close down. But a certain jewelry business, which would go on to be one of the most sought-after brands, wasn't ready to give up the dream. In today's video, we will look at how a poor boy survived eating rat and dog meat to continue his father's legacy in the business world. So, watch this video to the end to find out about this anonymous business. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Paris is undoubtedly known to be home to many luxury brands, but behind the success of those brands lies years of hardship. The story of this Paris luxury brand isn't any different. It all started in the 19th century when Louis-François Cartier was born to a poor metalworker and a laundress in Paris, France. Of course, it is the dream of every child to obtain a formal education, especially if such a child has friends from wealthy homes that attend school. But Louis' case is different. He was born into a poor family with 7 siblings, and as the eldest child, he had no choice other than to assist his father in his metal workshop. After a while, Louis decided he needed to learn something else and also to work to help his parents with the expenses of running the house. So, he began an apprenticeship with a watch and jewelry maker, Adolphe Picard. Louis knew it wouldn't be easy, but he had to do something different to make ends meet. Hence, he decided to stay with his master and work more than 15 hours daily. Louis endured the stress and hardship he was subjected to by his superiors at work. And after some years, his sacrifices paid off. Louis' master decided to open a new workshop in another part of Paris and was willing to sell the previous workshop. Louis, who had learned quite a lot from his boss, decided it was a perfect time to be independent. Hence, he decided to ask his relatives for a loan to cover half of the expenses, while he reached an agreement with his boss to pay the rest over time. After the sale of the workshop, Louis, who was hungry for success, set to work immediately. Firstly, he renamed the workshop to Cartier, which would later become a top brand known all around the world. Louis focused on what his boss taught him. He designed all kinds of jewelry and sold them to other jewelers. But the tension between Parisians and the king and the government had another thing in stock for Louis, who was forced to abandon his dream after armed forces shot over 50 Parisians very close to his workshop, forcing him to lock up the shop for years. Later in this video, we will show you how Louis built his luxury brand after years of lockdown. So, keep watching. 3 years later, a new monarch was appointed, and the protests subsided, making shop owners like Louis reopen their stores. Louis, who had locked up his business for 3 years, decided to change his business model upon reopening. To achieve this, Louis decided to walk the path of his former boss by opening a store in a developed part of Paris so he could sell his crafts to clients directly rather than to other jewelers. Even though Louis knew he wouldn't find it easy in the market due to the presence of top jewelry brands, he was sure he could make a difference by making quality jewelry and penetrating the market with a low price. One fateful day, a strange woman entered Louis' tiny workshop and made for the gold knickknacks he had on display. After accessing the material to confirm the quality, she ended up buying 3 pieces and even returned to buy a necklace. The stranger became a big fan of Louis' jewelry and started patronizing him frequently. Unknown to Louis, the strange woman was the Countess of Nieuwerkerk. As if the good news wasn't enough, the Countess once wore the necklace she got from Louis' store to an outing, where her husband's mistress, who happens to be a princess, caught a glimpse of the necklace and was wowed. She sought out Louis and became a frequent customer as well. Louis' hard work and dedication to his work seemed to have finally paid off, as he has 2 of the biggest customers in Paris frequenting his workshop, week in, week out. While all seems to be moving in the right direction, Louis' luck ran out a few months later when fire broke out from the restaurant beneath his store, destroying all of his goods. This is not the whole story. It is even going to get crazier. Keep watching. Luckily, Louis was able to restore the shop with his savings and continue his business. After the fire incident, Louis was opportune to buy a famous jeweler's store when the owner retired, and even though the rent was a bit high, he was able to pay for it after the most noble woman in France, Empress Eugenie, patronized him. Although all she bought from Louis was a tea set, it meant a lot to Louis that the best jewelry buyer in the country bought something from his store. After the Empress's patronage, Louis added more royal personalities to the list of his customers. Apparently, the Empress must have referred him to her friends, family, and associates within France and beyond. That single act of the Empress changed Louis's business for life, and soon he needed his son to assist in the store to meet up with clients' unending demands. Louis's son, Alfred, soon joined his father's business, but the unexpected happened. Wait a minute, this is not everything. Later in the video, we will show you how Alfred survived by eating rats to keep Cartier's legacy intact. The Franco-Prussian War erupted, and Prussian forces seized Paris. Being a jeweler means Louis and his business were the targets of war, so he fled with his items to Spain, while Alfred remained in Paris. The war reached a point where there was no food, and Alfred resorted to eating rat meat and dog meat to survive. When it got to the point that Alfred couldn't withstand it, he also traveled to London to sell gems to clients in exchange for a cut. His family business transactions soon paved the way for him, as all exiles who needed to sell gems to survive all depended on Alfred, helping Cartier earn an accolade as an official supplier for the court of St. James. It later dawned on Louis and his son that doing business overseas is the only way Cartier could survive, and not just the father-son relationship. After the war subsided, Alfred returned to Paris, and Louis decided to hand over the business to him. To make his son appreciate the business, Louis made Alfred pay 143,000 francs, which could be worth a little above $2,000 as of today. Alfred also consented to an arranged marriage with the daughter of a wealthy merchant, Alice Greffui. Alfred and his new wife later welcomed 3 sons, who went on to pioneer the family's business. Louis's grandsons conquered beyond their country, France. They developed a business model to create a prestigious jewelry empire. According to the business model, Louis Jr., being the eldest of the 3 boys and the most experienced, took control of Paris, the headquarters, and the rest of Europe, while Alfred and his other 2 sons took over the rest of the stores around the world. Louis eventually went on to sacrifice for the family after he grudgingly agreed to marry André Caroline from a very wealthy family. After the wedding, the money the bride's father gave to the couple was used to open a boutique and also to make a platinum experiment, which would later be used to design jewelry. The platinum was strong enough to hold gems in place and also light enough not to weigh clients down. The experiment made Cartier go from a mere jewelry maker to a luxury jewelry maker, all thanks to the sacrifices they all made for each other. Louis Sr. did pave the way, but Alfred and his sons made sacrifices that made Cartier what it is today. With over $12 billion of revenue, Cartier was able to survive the Great Depression and both world wars to keep serving royal families, elites, and celebrities.